Hey there. In this video, we are going to talk about your next big essay for the class. It is in the genre of researched argument. So, what is this genre? Obviously, it's an argument essay. You know that means that you need to have a clear point of view and you need to take consideration of other people's points of view. That's basic to argument. But why is it called a researched argument? Well, the reality is this is actually the main kind of argument essay that you'll be asked to do in college because it's subtle. What your goal is that you find sources that speak your point of view. So you're relying on the sources to speak for you. You let them do the talking. It's more convincing when you're arguing on topics where you're not really an expert, which, if we are realistic, out of most things in the world, we're not experts, are we? So we find experts and we let them do the talking for us. That's the research part of it. So that we don't just run amok, we need some bounds on our topic here. So what I'm going to ask you to do is you're going to be reading essays and thinking about questions connected with the value and the uses of digital technology in human lives. Just so we're clear, we need to call it digital technology because we are referring to things like texting, video games, Wikipedia, social media, internet searches. Those kinds of things are digital technology. The word technology all by itself does not actually necessarily refer to anything connected with computers. The word technology means or refers to the application of scientific knowledge for practical uses in human life. So everything from the wheel on up is technology. What we're going to talk about in this paper is digital technology. Like I said, you're going to have a series of articles that you have to read, and you'll have double entry journals, quizzes on those. You will need to use one of those articles in your essay. You certainly can use more of them if you want to. You will need to do some research on your own through the library. Let's just look at what those essays are, and I'll give you just a really quick rundown on what each one of them covers. At the top here, we've got Dana Boyd. She has written an article called Wikipedia as a Site of Knowledge Production. Most of the time when you hear Wikipedia in an academic sense, your mind says, oh, can't use that. Boyd is arguing that actually Wikipedia can do some good things. And beyond just focusing on Wikipedia, she talks about the importance of questioning your sources and thinking about credibility of sources and all those kinds of things. Nicholas Carr is Google making us stupid? Again, he's not really necessarily focusing specifically on Google. Well, he does talk about Google, but in the sense that it is representative for the internet, and he's looking at the way that we read now and the way that we used to read. He argues that too much reliance on internet searches leaves you reading on a very surface level, and it makes it harder to get deeply into subjects. Michaela Cullington, does texting affect writing? In her essay, she basically answers that question with a no. She says teachers have worried about too much texting creeping into student writing, and that really students know the difference, so that's not a big deal. Stephen Marsh is looking, well, his article is called Is Facebook Making Us Lonely? He's, again, Facebook stands as an example for social media, all kinds of social media. And he really does say the answer to his question there would be yes. Interesting that so many of these have questions for titles, huh? He says that if we are too focused on the appearance and not actually considering more in-depth relationships or how we're really feeling inside, that will end up making us lonelier than without Facebook or other social media. Alina Tugend, multitasking can make you lose focus. She's saying that essentially multitasking is a lie. There is no such thing. The human mind can only actually focus on one thing at a time, and any claim that you can do more things than that will or has the potential to damage relationships, to damage your work, so that you have to figure out how to, what she calls, single task. And last but not least, Alec Weiss is looking at video games. I forgot where now, in Holland, I think. There were some gamers who committed a theft within a massive multiplayer online game, and they were prosecuted for that, and he thinks that's dopey, basically. It is the question of real life and the lives that we create in simulated environments. Where do they cross over? Where does one begin and the other end? Should they? I mean, if we can be prosecuted for something virtual, then the virtual is coming into the real world. Those are the kinds of issues that Alex Weiss is looking at. So, with those, let's look at the requirements for the essay. You can see right in the middle here that you will have to use one of those essays, but note, this is not another textual analysis. I am not asking you to choose one of those essays and make your whole essay focus around what that person is saying. Instead, you're going to use them to help make an argument that you want to make, which is the core of a researched argument essay. So you're not summarizing their entire article, just like you're not going to summarize the entire article of anything else you find. You're going to choose some sort of an issue. You need to define that issue from one credible source. You need to describe the conversation about that issue. What are people saying? How does this issue affect different groups, different people? And analyze the language that people are using to talk about it so you can understand the bias that's being brought. And then, because it is an argument, you will take a stand. That stand that you're taking might not be really, really obvious any place except the thesis statement and the conclusion. In the thesis and in the conclusion, it needs to be clear what sort of a stand you're taking on this issue. The rest of the time, you might let your sources do most of the talking. In terms of sources, you need 4 sources total, and I've given you 1, so you have to go find at least 3. You certainly can have more sources than that, but you must have at least 4. 1 should be some sort of a primary text about the issue. This means someone speaking from personal experience. That's what a primary text is, not someone writing about what somebody else did. Find someone speaking from personal experience. So 1 should be a primary text. 1 should be an academic source, like a journal. Then the other 2 can be newspapers or .govs, those kinds of things. You can use dictionaries and encyclopedias, but they don't count toward the 4 source requirement. In the end, you're going to have a 4 to 5 page essay, double space, 12 point, Times New Roman, all that kind of good stuff. So now you're going to go and do a discussion board on this essay. And if you have questions, don't forget to email me.